Welcome, and happy Tuesday. Welcome back. I am Crystal Gunn, your financial strategist, here to give you another daily dose of financial empowerment and small business mastery. So, yesterday we talked about mastering money mindsets, transforming your financial relationship. And I want to continue with that just a little bit today because, again, mindset is so important. And a lot of times people have no idea why they operate the way that they operate. So, what is a financial relationship? Basically, your financial relationship is your relationship with money, credit, wealth building, what you think about it, how you handle it. And then also that financial relationship, you wind up passing along to your kids, right? And so think about it, when you get into a relationship and then you get married, you're bringing two financial relationships together and they might be totally different. So understanding your financial relationship and building one that works for you, because most times that financial relationship isn't defined by you. It's created by outside forces, right? So when we look about when we look at that, and it taps into the psychology of money, right? And so part of my job is, as a strategist, is to help you have some aha moments. And I'm hoping during these office hours you have a ton of aha moments, because that is where breakthrough happens. That is where the shift starts to happen. And so there'll be a slight shift, and then you'll see some improvement or some growth or some gains, and then there'll be a bigger shift. And what happens, you have that mindset shift, you'll never go back to where you were before. Or if something happens, as things do in life, right, you wind up having the skills, the knowledge, and the training to be able to adjust to them far better than you would in the past. So back to financial relationships. So financial relationships, right, defined by somebody else. And it all goes back to the psychology of the mind. So if we look at those financial relationships and what impacts that financial relationship, it's what you receive generationally through your childhood, through society, and through your life. So what you receive generationally. And when I say, what did you receive generationally, or what you inherited generationally, I'm not talking about assets. I'm talking about, again, what you saw, what you were taught, what you were not taught, what you heard, and what you overheard. All of that impacts what you're doing right now, today. All of it impacts that. And so those are some things that are passed down generationally that continue to impact the way that you operate with your finances. It continues to impact your financial relationship. And so a lot of times people don't even understand, and they don't get why they operate the way that they operate. Because I had a client, and I think I may have talked about this yesterday, whose credit card debts were maxed out. Well, as we continued on discovery, found out her mother's credit cards were always maxed out, right? And so your mother's credit cards are always maxed out. You associate your credit cards with being maxed out. And even when she paid the balances down, she just felt like she had to go out there and buy something else. So what you saw and what you inherited generationally and what you saw growing up, all of that impacts your childhood. I'm sorry, your financial relationship. There's also the role of emotions. And oftentimes we are reactionary. So we're reactionary. So something happens and it has or can have a negative impact on your financial relationship. And so let's say something happened to make you mad. How do you respond to that? Right? A lot of times people will spend the money that they shouldn't, whether they have it or not, but they'll spend the money that they shouldn't, and then they justify it with, oh, well, I'm mad, right? Or such and such hurt my feelings, or I didn't get this promotion, or I didn't win this reward. And so I need to go out and have some retail therapy. Retail therapy is not therapy, right? It is absolutely not therapy. And it can be detrimental to not only your financial relationship, just being emotionally driven can impact your financial relationship. But then going out and doing the retail therapy can have a negative impact on your current financial status, right? Who knows what will happen? Are you creating more debt? Are you pulling money out of a bank account when you have bills coming through on that bank account? Because most people are not balancing their bank accounts, right? So how is it having that negative impact? And then what are you going to do to control it? So instead of going out and having retail therapy, what one should do is look at the trigger, right? Why are you triggered in the first place? So once you figure out why you're triggered in the first place, so someone makes you mad, someone makes you feel a certain kind of way, then you want to go out and you want to do retail therapy. So you want to shop when you really shouldn't be shopping anyway. You're going to spend too much money because in that moment you feel really good. You try the clothes on and you look really cute or you look really handsome. And so you're going to do that retail therapy because in that moment, right, it gives you that quick rush. It gives you that, oh, I feel good right now. But then what happens? Do you go back and regret it? And even if you don't go back and regret it, does it have a negative impact? I had another client who had two children under the age of 10 at that time. And she had recently gotten divorced. And she had probably about $15,000, $16,000 in credit card debt. Now she had quite a few store credit cards. And if you follow me, if you listen to me, you know I'm not a fan of store credit cards, right? She had quite a few store credit cards, but all her credit cards were pretty much almost all the way to the max. Not totally maxed out, but they were, 75, 85% balance. So when we talked about the credit card debt, and I said, well, how do you feel about this credit card debt? And she says, oh my God, I have not been sleeping because of it. She said, and sometimes I can't sleep at night. And she says, I'm going to pick up extra shifts on the weekend so that I can work to pay this credit card debt off. And I said, okay. So we'll talk about that and look at some ways on some debt strategies on how to get this taken care of. Well, in another conversation, in another session, talking about the credit card debt again and the shopping. And she says, but I feel so good when I go out shopping. When I try the clothes on, or I then come back and I put the makeup on. She says, I feel really pretty and I feel really good about it. And I said, okay. I said, but you also told me that you have a knot in your stomach because of that credit card debt, that you can't sleep at night sometimes because you're worried about that credit card debt. I said, and most importantly, you said you're going to pick up extra shifts on the weekend to help pay this credit card debt down, which will further take you away from your children. I said, so when you're feeling great in that moment, what's the ripple effect and the negative impact of those actions for you're feeling really good in that moment? But how does that impact your life? And how does it impact your children's life? And she thought about it. And ultimately, the decision always winds up being yours. But it did give her an opportunity to think about it and saying, maybe we need to figure out another way. And maybe I need to Yeah, we're going to put that in your budget. Shopping goes in your budget so that you're just not out spending money and then you come back and regret it. So remember, retail therapy is not therapy. So, what you should be doing though, when you're triggered by something, someone's made you mad, someone's made you feel a certain kind of way, sit in it before you respond, before you go out shopping and spending money that, again, whether you have it or not, you probably shouldn't be spending. Figure out why you were triggered. What about that incident triggered you? Because that trigger is a sign to you that you need some healing in that space. And most times, the trigger that happened and that feeling that you got behind it really doesn't have anything to do with the person. It's all something to do with you. Again, something that you need to heal. When I started paying attention to that for myself, right? It's like, okay, well, this person said a thing or did a thing or didn't do a thing, and I felt a certain kind of way. And when I stepped back, instead of responding immediately, when I stepped back and I thought it through and I looked at me, I realized there was some healing that I needed to do in that situation. And it really didn't have anything to do with that other person. That other person didn't know what had happened in the past, didn't know what someone had said to me in the past, didn't know what I wasn't able to accomplish in the past. They weren't trying to be mean. They weren't trying to do any of that. 9 times out of 10 times, I didn't even have to address that thing with that other person because I had to heal it with myself. That 10th time, absolutely, it was something that we needed to address. We needed to, get to the bottom of, and we did that and we were able to move forward. However, the most important piece is the healing piece that happens within, because that healing that happens within, it stops you from doing those sort of things like retail shopping that don't do you any good at the end of it. So again, you want to make sure you're controlling how you are operating emotionally when it comes to your finances, right? So then there's another psychological barrier, because these are really psychological barriers, and there are different mindsets that go along with that, right? So that mindset of lack, there is enough going around. There is enough. When we're talking about money, there's enough success and money out there for everybody. So, this mindset of lack, we've been conditioned to believe it, to think it, to feel it, right? And we've been conditioned by people close to us, people that are leaders in the community, and people that, we look up to in a lot of areas. So, there's that mindset of lack. And you have to, again, it's all about healing you, right? Because if you have that mindset of lack and it is just lording over you, really doesn't matter what you do. You're always going to come back and not have enough, right? So you have to work through and do what you need to do to heal it. And part of it is recognizing it when you see it, right? And then there's the guilt of, okay, there's a couple ways that guilt can play out, right? I remember when I was going through my financial hardship that my daughter was young, 6 or 7 at the time. She's 22 now. So this is, 5 or 6. And not having what I felt like was enough money and not being able to do the things with her that she didn't even know she was missing. Right. All she wanted to do was spend time with her mother when she was with me. Right. So, because we divorced when she was 4. So, going through that, and I always felt guilty about it. But that was guilt that I put on myself, because in reality, she didn't know that she was not getting a thing or missing something, right? And so there's that guilt of, we want to do more and give more and spend more money on our children. And when we can't, right, we feel bad. There's also the guilt of being away from the home because you have to work and your children are with someone else. And so that guilt can creep in. And then you are buying them more things when, again, all they really want to do is spend time with you. So there is that guilt that 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 can seep in and cause you to, again, do things that are negatively impacting your financial relationship. And then there's the self-worth and self-esteem. We'll talk about these um, really together because we see a lot of things, or we see a lot of people using things to make them feel better, right? That's that retail therapy thing, right? Or they are looking at individuals on social media, right? And they're trying to get people to be around them, to think certain things about them. So, oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to spend this money that in most instances they don't have or shouldn't be spending on these sort of things, right? And so that self worth and that self love is really, really huge. And I don't care how many opportunities you get. If you don't think that you're worth it, you're never going to get all that you really and truly deserve, right? So self worth is just understanding that. And a lot of times people get beat up and beat down so many times that every time that happens, their self worth is diminished a little more. And so give yourself some grace and on honor and execute your amazing and understand that your self worth has nothing to do with anybody else and nothing to do with what someone else thinks about you, right? So when you don't know your own value, when you haven't healed in some of those areas, it's always going to be a barrier to all of your success, your financial success, your career success, your relationship success, your parenting success. And remember, it's also going to impact your children, and you're going to pass that down to that next generation and the generation after that. Self love. There's always a bunch of talk about self love. That's, self love, self care, all of that goes, hand in hand, right now. And you hear a lot of that. And you see a lot of self care when someone's going to get a massage and they're going to the spa and they're getting their hair done and their nails done. And all of that is great. But really and truly, that's maintenance, right? That's maintenance. That's not self care. It's above and beyond that. You should be doing that naturally. And when you work with me or when you're creating an efficient and effective budget, you want to make sure that you got a line item in there for self care because it's critical, it's important, right? Self care is crucial. So that's maintenance, though. I'm talking about above and beyond. So that self care looks like coaching, right? That self care looks like, what does your bank account look like? What does your credit look like? That's self love and self care as well. It's also self worth. Don't you think you are worthy to have a great credit score? Don't you think you're worthy to have a retirement account that you're putting money into, a regular savings account? Don't you think you're worthy and or don't you love yourself enough to figure out or to get help to figure it out on how you make that possible, right? Because remember, especially if you have children, and I'm going to talk about that piece a lot through training, especially if you have children, because you want to be sure that you're passing on things that are not being barriers to them as well, right? So when we talk about generational curses, these are the type of generational curses that we need to break. So again, when you talk about that self-love, when you talk about self-care, when you talk about self-worth, you have to go back and you have to look at yourself. What am I doing for me, to me? How am I treating me? Because I promise you, and I see it time and time again with my clients, I see it with people who come to my workshops. When you start to get your finances in order, every area of your life changes. But there's some healing that you need to do in order to get your finances in order. Because what happens is that healing spills over in every one of those areas of your life. So you definitely have to self-love, self-worth. There are other psychological barriers. So again, we talked about that lack. Um, a big one is when you think about lack is so many times I ask people, well, how much money do you want to make in a year? And oftentimes their response is, well, I just need to make enough money to pay my bills and maybe have a little bit left over. Or I just need to make enough money to be comfortable. But what is comfortable, right? Because comfortable is not always comfortable. It's just what you know and it's what you've been operating in. And so that's that mindset of lack where and it's a couple of things and reasons that that happens. It could be because you're scared to do what you need to do in order to make more money, or you're scared of failing and not getting it, or you're you have a fear of the success, right? So when we think about prosperity as our birthright, why would you limit the amount of money you make to just be able to pay bills and be comfortable? Dream, think big, and then think bigger, right? So that's that. I just need to make enough money. You have to go back, and this is where the healing part takes place, and really look at why you think that you're only good enough to have just enough money to pay your bills with a little bit of money left over. There's also that thought process of I make good money, I have good credit, and that keeps a lot of people from seeking help, right? So just like doctors have continuing ed, realtors have continuing education classes that they need to make. Even if you make good money, even if you have good credit, you need those checkups to make sure that you're on track, that you're doing everything that you're supposed to do. Because remember, a lot of this stuff you're not taught. And so if you're not taught, where do you get it? If you don't seek it out, right? You're just going through life and you're managing. I'll never forget, I was in DC at a conference and met a young lady who was from New York. She was either from New York or DC. But when she asked me what I did, I told her I'm a financial strategist. And her response was, oh my God, I need to talk to you. She says, because I make a lot of money. She said, but if you look at my savings and my investments, she was like, you wouldn't think that. And I said, yes, because you don't have a financial system of success in place. She said, what? And I said, it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you don't have a financial system of success in place, you're never going to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. You will look back and say, well, wait a minute, make all of this money. Where is this money going? Right? That's that system of success, the efficient and effective budget, where you're being intentional with your money in order to live the life that you want and not the one that you get after paying bills and splurging and doing whatever because you make a lot of money and so you spend it. So it doesn't matter how much money you make, right? It's what you do with that money and the intentionality that you have behind it. So you have to get back, you have to get away from that. Oh, I'm good because, right? So you want to make sure, even if you think, okay, you know what, I'm going to go have a session with Crystal or a session with some other financial strategist and planner just to make sure that you're good, right? As confirmation that you're good. And maybe you could tweak this a little bit better, or no, you're dead on this thing, right? So it's the continuing education to help you flourish more. Another psychological barrier to financial success is the deep down belief that a thing won't work. Someone can tell you to do something. Hey, let's create this efficient and effective budget. Let's put this on autopilot so things are happening automatically so that you can then see. And you go through the process, but deep down, you really don't think it's going to work for whatever reason, because that reason is going to be different between everybody. So, but you really think it doesn't work. You start this business, you go through the motions, but deep down, you really don't think this thing is going to work, right? And so, because you don't think it's going to work, you're absolutely right. It's not going to work, right? It's just not going to work. You have to believe in the thing, be it I know this is a good idea. And sometimes, though, you do have to borrow the faith that God had in you to give you the assignment in the first place. But if you believe deep down that a thing won't work, chances are it won't work. So, because I always ask my clients for why they, how you want to live the rest of your life, right? So that's one of the questions I always ask. How do you want to live the rest of your life from this day forward? If you don't have any idea on that, you can't even start to make it happen. And when I'm building an efficient and effective budget with my clients, how you want to live the rest of your life is really important. Now, granted, it may change as things in your life change, but what's the starting point today? How do you want to live? How do you want to live the rest of your life from this day forward? So, one of the things that I have, and you can get under my favorite things, which I'm going to go, you'll get on my favorite things every single session with me. So my favorite things. What is my favorite things this week? It is my life, a manifesting guide. And it's something that I created simply because my clients had no idea. It was always the same thing. I don't know. I never thought about that. And that's part of a problem. That same woman who um, got high with the retail therapy but had the young kids, she'd come to a workshop of mine and she did not complete an assignment in the workbook, which was how do you want to live your life? And literally, she said she got scared. She didn't do it because she got scared. And I said, oh my God, if she's scared to dream about the rest of her life, she's not going to support her children when they dream. So part of that discovery, hearing her say that, and then continuing to work with my clients and them in realizing that a lot of times they haven't thought about it intentionally. So I said, well, let me create this guide. And this guide gives you 19 different prompts, right? Because when you're going about it, you will forget a thing or miss a thing or not even know that you should be concentrating on a thing. So it's going to give you all of these prompts that you can write in. Granted, you're not going to finish this in one setting. This is a working document that you're going to go in and you're going to add. Even as life continues to go, you're going to go in and add. So download this. It's a digital product. You can go and download it. The link is in the descriptions today. But again, it is 108 pages, but it's 19 different prompts, over 19 different prompts of how, giving you things to think about on how you want to live the rest of your life. You know, you always do homework for me. So let's talk about these three things that you are going to do when you live here, when you leave today. How do you want to spend the rest of your life? Dream big and then dream bigger, right? Because listen, when you download my life and manifesting guide and you start working on that and you start writing out how you want to live the rest of your life, don't worry about how it's going to happen. Don't worry about where the money is going to come from. That's not your assignment and that's not your job right then. So don't worry about it. Dream as if you have all of the money in the world and write it down, because what's going to happen is, because you're writing it down, you're starting a spark in the universe and you will find people, opportunities, ideas will start to show up in order to realize those things that you write in this guide. So start writing. So start thinking about it first and then start writing it. Get the manifesting guide or just write. Even if you don't get the guide, just start to write out how you want to live the rest of your life and make it fun. It shouldn't be taxing. It shouldn't be. And when that negative thought comes up, like, I can't make this happen, stop writing and then come back to it. And then also the third thing is you want to pay attention to your triggers, whatever those triggers are. Whenever they arise, when something makes you mad, when something makes you sad, you want to tap into those triggers. Sit with them before you do anything and figure out why you feel the way that you do so that you can start to heal. We are all in this life for elevation. Self-discovery is how you learn the things that you need to change. And once you figure out why those triggers happen, why you're triggered by certain things, That's when you get to start to heal from them and release the things that no longer serve you. As all, I think that's really it for the day. Got your homework closing? Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. Join me for the private Q&A. Immediately following that, the link is in the description. And remember, in all things you do, make it amazing. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time. Be sure to join me for the private online Q&A immediately following. The link is in the description. And if you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and turn notifications on so you never miss this opportunity. Thank you again, and I will see you on the other side.